Okay, so now you should have the U starting on frame 10. So we're going to have the S start on frame 20. And this is your frame indicator right there. So you know that if you're grabbing a hold of that first keyframe, that's going to help you get it in the right spot. And so we're staggering by 10 each time. So now we're on 50. $60, $70. And if your word you chose is not as long, then obviously yours isn't going to go out that far. Okay? But now, when I play it, Mustangs. Okay? So that is where they go. But we're not done yet. Okay? So while this looks cool, the way they stagger on, we have the ability to kind of make it look like there's a shadow, like it's hitting a wall or something and there's a shadow. So I am going to select all my layers. I clicked on the bottom one, which selected all those frames, and then I shift clicked on the top one to select those. Now I'm going to right click, and no, I'm not going to right click. I am going to have to, let me see if I can do one at a time. Okay. Actually, let me see if I can do two at a time. Nope, it's only going to let me do one. All right, so what I'm going to do then, and this is going to take a minute, I'm going to right click on one layer and choose copy frames. I'm going to go to insert new symbol, and I'm just going to call this, I'm just going to call it Mustangs, and it's going to be a movie clip. Click OK, and I'm going to paste frames. Okay, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to go back to scene 1. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to drag it to the bottom, and I am going to zoom out to about 100. I'm going to go to my library where everything is stored, and I need to drag out this Mustangs, and it has just the M on it so far. Okay, but I am going to move it over, and Animate is going to help me make sure that I have it exactly over the original. Okay, and you can use your arrows on your keyboard, but you probably saw that as I moved it, it snapped it into place for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to select the next layer, right click, copy frames, and now I'm going to double click to go inside there, paste frames, create a new layer. Go back to scene 1, and you can see what I'm doing. I'm doing this one at a time. I am locking layers as I go, just because that helps me know what I'm doing. Okay, so copied frames, paste frames, new layer. Copy frames, double click, paste frames, new layer. Sometimes it allows us to copy more than one layer at a time. Unfortunately, this time it didn't. Copy frames, paste frames, new layer. Copy frames, paste frames, new layer. Almost there. Copy frames, paste frames, one more. Copy frames, and whoops, double click, paste frames. There we are. So I can actually look inside this movie clip here and see that it's working inside this movie clip. Okay? Then I can go back to scene 1. And if I hide everything but that new layer, oh, whoops, sorry. Remember that if I hit enter, movie clips don't play on this main timeline. So I'd have to go to test movie in Animate, and there it is. Okay, so it is working. So what I'm going to do now then is I am going to delete all those layers except for the new one where the movie clip is. I'm going to go ahead and call this, I'm calling it Mustangs because that's the text that's on this layer. I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to call it Shadow. I'm going to copy frames from there, paste frames there. Now, at this point, it's right on top of each other again because I copied and pasted frames. But if I'm on my shadow layer now, I can go to Modify, Transform, Flip Vertical. Now it's upside down. And now I can use it's like a mirror image of itself. I can use the Shift and the arrow keys on my keyboard. Okay, I'm going to look at something real quick, by the way. Yeah, okay. And basically what we want to do is, this is based on where this is, we need to move this to where this line is almost the halfway point. Okay, so I'm going to move it down a little bit lower than normal, and I'm going to go to Control and Test again. Oh, that looks actually pretty good right there. Basically what they're should be doing is they should bounce one right on top of the other. Whoops, I'm waiting for these to go away. We're going to fix that later. They should meet, they should bounce, and the bottoms of them basically meet. So I got those pretty close. Okay, so now what I want to do though is I want to click on that shadow one, and I'm going to go to my properties, and I'm going to click here on that one, because notice that it's different. Properties look different if I clicked on a frame as opposed to something else. Okay, so here is the movie clip. I can go to Color Effect and choose Tint. The tint I want is actually going to be this third gray down. It's all 9s. Only I need to bump up the amount of tint to 100%, so it's gray. Then down here under Filters, I'm going to hit the plus and I'm going to choose Blur. And as long as I have these links locked, I can type in I think it's 15 pixels that I want, and it'll apply it to both. Okay, and what that 15 pixels is doing is it's applying a blur on both the X and the Y axis just to make it look like it's a shadow. And again, it's not going to play because these are movie clips. Now, if I go and do a control test again, see how it's now looking like a shadow. Now, we don't like that shadow staying up here though. That's not what we want, because obviously that looks weird. So what we need to do is create a third layer. This one is going to be called Mask. And remember that what a mask does is whatever shape you put there, we're going to put a rectangle, whatever is behind the shape, you're able to see. Okay, so if it's outside the shape, it becomes invisible. So we want this shadow to only be seen in this area of the stage below our guideline. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, and it's okay that my rectangle goes off the stage a little bit. That just keeps it secure. And then I'm going to right click on the mask, and I'm going to go, well, first off I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go to Control, Test, and there it is. No longer do I have that the shadowed movie clip hanging out at the top. Okay, now there's a lot of lag time here as far as replaying itself. Okay, so I have a couple of options. Here on the main timeline, we have frames all the way out to, I don't know, 114. I'm going to go ahead and that we don't need those. So I'm going to right click and remove frames. All we need is that first one there. Then if I go into, and I'm going to go do this in my library, if I go to that Mustang's movie clip and I look at this timeline, I can see that there's a lot of extra time at the end. Notice that it goes all the way out actually to frame 625. It's a whole lot longer than what we want because the initial layer only lasted a second and a half, 45 frames. So if we look, we can see where that last keyframe is in each layer because it's 10 frames after the one below it, right? So I can see my top one, this one actually ends here at 115, or actually 114. So at 115, if I select and drag down and then all the way over to the right and till the end, I can right click and I can choose remove frames, and now it's ending where it should. Okay, so now if I go back to scene 1, save again, and then Control Test, it should play. Once it clears to the bottom, it should repeat just like that. Okay, so that's what getting rid of all of those extra frames does. So if your shadow does not meet the text in the right place, just remember that you can go in and unlock these layers, and you can just maneuver, not the Mustang one obviously, but maneuver this shadow layer up or down just a little bit using the arrows on your keyboard, a few at a time, so you can determine whether they need to move up or down. And then when you're ready to test it, lock them all again so that it has the mask, and then you can again test and make sure that they're doing that. I actually got lucky that what I would say is perfect on the first time, because every other time I've tried this, I've had to make adjustments. So just realize that there's a good chance you'll need to as well. Okay, so now you've got your Swift file that you can put on your canvas. Just make sure that you have that saved in case you need to edit it later.